November 22nd, 1943. A scorching 110-degree sun beat down on the blood-soaked beaches of Betio Island at Tarawa Atoll. Amid the chaos of one of the Pacific War's grimmest bloodbaths, a man who had washed out of flight school twice, a copper mine owner from New Mexico with 3 daughters waiting at home, stood atop a Japanese bunker yelling for more demolition charges. Lieutenant Alexander Sandy Bonnyman had just seconds left to live, but his actions in those final moments would break open the entire Japanese defensive line and earn him the nation's highest military honor. This is the story of how an average American from Middle America became one of only 4 men to receive the Medal of Honor at Tarawa, and one of 3 awarded posthumously, captured in a series of photographs that remain the only images ever taken of a Medal of Honor winner during the actual moment he earned the award. When war broke out in 1941, Bonnyman was 31 and exempt from service due to his age and the fact that his copper mine produced strategically vital material for the war effort. Nevertheless, determined to see action, he signed up again for Army Air Corps flight training and washed out a second time, reportedly for buzzing too many control towers. He then turned to the Marine Corps, which accepted him as a private in July 1942. He enlisted in Phoenix, Arizona, and received basic training at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego. In October 1942, Sandy Bonnyman sailed for the South Pacific aboard the transport USS Matsonia as a member of the 6th Marines, a 2nd Marine Division, headed for Guadalcanal. He served with distinction as part of a Marine Pioneer Unit, similar to a Light Army Combat Engineer Group, using his engineering experience to build a vitally needed bridge across the flooded Poha River. Now a corporal, at the campaign's conclusion in February 1943, he received a battlefield commission as a 2nd lieutenant in recognition of exceptional leadership skills. After stateside leave, where he saw his family for the last time, the Marines began intensive training for Tarawa. On September 1, 1943, Bonnyman was promoted to executive officer of the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marine Shore Party, detailed to handle shore logistics and landing supplies. His civilian experience and skills were deemed ideal for the post. The amphibious landing on Betio at Tarawa Atoll on November 20, 1943, became one of the grimmest bloodbaths of the Pacific War. Landing craft in the first wave hung up on the island's surrounding coral reefs. Men drowned or were cut down before reaching shore. Those who survived found only a narrow beach strip with little more than a seawall of coconut logs for cover. The Japanese had months to prepare defenses on Betio, and every square foot was covered by their weapons. Whole units were pinned at the water's edge. By nightfall, the Marines clung to a tenuous foothold. Bonnyman's position as shore party executive officer didn't give him direct combat responsibility. Nevertheless, he immediately took a leadership role in the chaos. Leroy Kisling of Modesto, California, then a sergeant who served with Bonnyman as a demolition man, remembered, "He was a good, likable guy, but he took no guff." Kisling recalled Bonnyman as generous, sharing his officers' liquor ration with non-commissioned officers, but also demanding. When one Marine dropped his mine detector in the ocean, thinking it was too heavy, Bonnyman threatened to send him back under enemy fire to retrieve it. His attitude, "You've got a job to do. You'd better do it." When assault troops were pinned by heavy artillery fire at the seaward end of the long Betio Pier, Bonnyman acted on his own initiative, gathering 5 men and leading them across the open pier, swept by continuous Japanese machine gun and mortar fire, to the beach beyond. There, he obtained flamethrowers and demolition charges and oversaw the destruction of several enemy installations, preventing the Marines from advancing. His actions were captured in the 1944 documentary With the Marines at Tarawa. On November 21st, the second day, the Marine advance halted at a cement blockhouse and large sand-covered redoubt later known as Bonnyman's Hill. The blockhouse, containing at least 150 Japanese defenders, was impervious to air attack and naval shelling. 40 yards forward of the Marine lines, it inflicted heavy casualties. Destruction of this position would open a hole in the entire Japanese defensive line, allowing Marines to pour through to the island's interior. An ad hoc squad of engineers was assembled, nicknamed Forlorn Hope. Corporal Harry Niehoff led demolitions, while Corporal John Boric commanded 2 flamethrowers. Neither knew Bonnyman before that moment. "He just showed up," Niehoff remembered. "Until that time, we were being held up with no gain to show for it." The initial assault carried men forward almost to the Japanese position's mouth, killing several enemy troops. But the Marines were beaten back, short of ammunition. As day faded, Bonnyman surveyed the position with an engineer's experienced eye, studying the bunker approach, outlying machine gun positions, and taking special notice of large air vents protruding from the bunker top. Tomorrow would be different. Bonnyman's third and last day, November 22nd, dawned bright and clear. Marines still pinned in the same positions. The temperature soared to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Marine Corps photographer Corporal Obi Newcomb attached himself to Bonnyman's squad. Quickly realizing he was witnessing someone unusual, he decided to follow the lieutenant's assault with his camera. The action he recorded would dispel the Hollywood myth of Bonnyman single-handedly attacking with a flamethrower. What happened was teamwork combined with intelligent, selfless, and absolutely fearless leadership. When Bonnyman sensed his 21-man team was ready, he instructed Marines to lay down withering covering fire. Rifles, automatic weapons, and mortars opened up as Bonnyman vaulted over the seawall, darted to a nearby wooden fence, and crawled to the bunker's edge. At intervals, others followed. At his signal, covering fire shifted higher, and his group prepared for the final assault. Hundreds of Marines witnessed what happened next, each remembering pieces from unique vantage points. Bonnyman's men scrambled up the sandy slope of the 10-foot-high mound covering the bunker, struggling to maintain footing. They immediately attracted Japanese fire, taking losses. Corporal Boric fought up the left side, cremating the nearest machine gunner with his flamethrower, then unleashing a longer napalm blast to cover Corporal Niehoff's approach. Niehoff hurled a short-fused TNT charge atop the bunker. Though causing little physical damage, the explosion's smoke provided a distraction that allowed other engineers to attack the vulnerable air vents. In this chaos, Major William Chamberlain, executive officer of the 8th Marines, directing covering fire, shouted, "Go!" Instantly, 30 or 40 more Marines charged up the deadly slope. Boric exhausted his flamethrower against remaining machine gun nests, while Bonnyman and Niehoff took prone positions atop the eastern edge, providing covering fire for advancing infantry. As Bonnyman and I were almost elbow to elbow, Niehoff later recalled, we heard a cry from the men on the south rim. Suddenly, Japanese were running all over, and our men were yelling that they had breached a log and sand tunnel beneath them, which explained the mysterious appearance and disappearance of Japanese soldiers in the area over the last few days. Without warning, over 100 Japanese soldiers swarmed out of the bunker. Marines scrambled for clear shots. Private First Class Bill Fratt cursed his slow, bolt-action Springfield rifle. The M4 Sherman tank named Colorado fired a single canister round, instantly cutting down several dozen Japanese. Other Japanese stopped and fired back. A vicious close-range shootout erupted, Bonnyman yelling for more demolition charges. He personally killed 3 Japanese soldiers before enemy fire found him. Lieutenant Bonnyman raised himself on one elbow, Niehoff continued, and looked back to tell someone behind us to get more charges when I heard the bullet hit him. He never moved after that, and I knew he was dead. I felt like I was next because we were lined up on the top rim like ducks in a shooting gallery. Corporal Newcomb, the only other Marine who knew Bonnyman on sight, tracked his movements throughout with his camera. In a letter to Bonnyman's family, Newcomb wrote, "He didn't have to go up to take that blockhouse, but there was no stopping him. It was a perfect hellhole hole, and the boys needed a little urging when things started to break. I can still see him waving the boys up over that blockhouse and hear his southern voice urging them on. He was one of the bravest men we had with us." Alexander Sandy Bonnyman was 33 years old. The battle continued for 10 or 15 more minutes until all the Japanese were eliminated and the blockhouse destroyed. A Japanese counterattack was swiftly beaten back. Survivors used 2 54-pound blocks of TNT and an entire case of gelatin dynamite on this blockhouse alone, engineers applying each charge by hand. A bitter Niehoff searched for Bonnyman's body afterward. His body was still in the same position on the edge of the shelter, next to a Japanese machine gunner, as when I left him. But no one knew who he was until they read his dog tags. He was already unrecognizable. Of Bonnyman's 21 Marines, only 13 survived the assault. Major Chamberlain, along with Corporals Niehoff and Borich, provided eyewitness corroboration for Marine Major General Julian Smith to recommend Bonnyman for the Medal of Honor. During review, the recommendation was downgraded to the Navy Cross, but the 2nd Marine Division persisted, and eventually the Navy Department reversed its decision, awarding Alexander Bonnyman the posthumous Medal of Honor 3 years later. All action was captured in remarkable photographs taken by Obi Newcomb. Never before or since has a Medal of Honor winner been photographed during the action that earned him the award. Because of Bonnyman's Forlorn Hope Squad's achievements, a breach was made in Japanese lines, enabling Marines to proceed to Berrio's interior, rolling up Japanese positions until all resistance ceased. The island was declared secure later that same day, with final actions on the 23rd. The location of Bonnyman's remains, along with dozens of others who died on that island, was lost to history. Some accounts claimed his body was buried at sea, though most likely he was placed in an unmarked common grave with other Marines and covered by a bulldozer. For decades, his whereabouts remained unknown. The U.S. Defense Department's Prisoner of War Missing Personnel Office maintains that Bonnyman's body was non-recovered. His Marine casualty card lists both a temporary grave and a memorial grave with a marker, but no body. In November 2008, the volunteer organization History Flight reported locating remains of 139 of the 541 Marines whose bodies were never found, including Bonnyman's. Mark Noah, History Flight's executive director, said Bonnyman's body most likely lies under a dirt parking lot. Another researcher, William Niven, using Google Earth maps overlaid on invasion maps, concluded that Bonnyman and 39 other Marines are located just southeast and inland of the old pier. History Flight and WWII Research Group raised $90,000 using ground-penetrating radar and GPS technologies with military records to locate possible remains. A recovery could potentially be the largest identification of American war dead in the nation's history. In September 2010, the Hawaii-based Joint POWMIA Accounting Command began excavating 6 possible burial sites on Tarawa, but no definitive findings have been released. There is a long process we have to go through before we can positively identify any remains we may find, said Gregory Fox, lead archaeologist, and that can take months or even years. Finding his grandfather's remains became the mission of Clay Bonnyman Evans of Niwot, Colorado, Bonnyman's last living grandson. Evans made the trip to see the bunker where his grandfather won the Medal of Honor. Evans, a writer authoring a book about his grandfather, said, "That trip to Tarawa has been the dramatic centerpiece I have been waiting on. This is not only about me, our family putting an end to the war and family heroes, but it is also about the Marines not leaving anyone behind. In September 2010, the Hawaii-based Joint POW Accounting Command began excavating 6 possible burial sites on Tarawa, but no definitive findings have been released. There is a long process we have to go through before we can positively identify any remains we may find, said Gregory Fox, lead archaeologist, and that can take months or even years. Finding his grandfather's remains became the mission of Clay Bonnyman Evans of Niwot, Colorado, Bonnyman's last living grandson. Evans made the trip to see the bunker where his grandfather won the Medal of Honor. Evans, a writer authoring a book about his grandfather, said, "That trip to Tarawa has been the dramatic centerpiece I have been waiting on. This is not only about me, our family, putting an end to the war and family heroes, but it is also about the Marines not leaving anyone behind." Evans walked up to the bunker named for his grandfather. "I got up on top and there was still sand and weeds," he said. Most of the bunker remains standing today. Evans said his grandfather's gallantry didn't fully hit him until he walked back down Bonnyman Hill and reached Red Beach 3, approximately where his grandfather came ashore nearly 70 years earlier. "I looked back toward the bunker and that sent a shiver up my spine," he said. "It was a Marine's eye view." Though only 7 when her father left for war, Francis Bonnyman Evans remembered Sandy as tall and handsome, very outgoing with lots of friends, and I gather somewhat impetuous. She explained that his leadership and impressive performance at Tarawa reflected his adventurous nature. "He was a reckless sort of person," said Gordon Bonnyman, one of Alexander's brothers, in an interview for the Veterans Oral History Project at the University of Tennessee in April 2000. Gordon served with Merrill's Marauders in Burma when he received a letter about his brother's death. During his 16-month Marine Corps career, Bonnyman earned a Purple Heart Presidential Unit Citation, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 3 Bronze Stars, and the World War II Victory Medal. The Medal of Honor was presented to his then 12-year-old daughter, Frances, by Secretary of the Navy James F. Forrestal during ceremonies at the Navy Department in Washington, D.C. on January 22, 1947. Sandy Bonnyman's legacy lives on in family members who followed him to Princeton and in 2 campus memorials bearing his name. One is inside Nassau Hall Memorial Room, where his name is inscribed, honoring university casualties in World War II. The second is a bronze star on the window ledge of his former dorm room, Blair Hall 54, one of many commemorating alumni who died in combat. But Bonnyman's greatest legacy is captured in Obie Newcomb's extraordinary photographs. His actions have appeared in newsreels and documentaries about Tarawa ever since. In those images, frozen in time, Sandy Bonnyman is forever pictured as a true Marine, going over that deadly hill with his brothers, leading from the front. He was a man who washed out of flight school twice, dropped out of Princeton, and could have sat out the war safely in New Mexico with his 3 daughters. Instead, he chose to fight. And on a scorching November day on a tiny Pacific island, that choice secured his place among the heroes who won World War II.